30 years later, I still tear up about it. He was this horrible person that I spent almost 9 years of my life with.
Sterrett was a trained engineer, but police say the 29-year-old who lived a seemingly normal life has a hidden dark side.
Piece by piece, little by little, kind of all the facts come out, and it's devastating.
Do you have any statements?
He wasn't the same man I married. It's sort of like this completely different person, and I just wanted somebody to do something.
So far, police have linked Sterrett to 7 open investigations in Georgia and both North and South Carolina.
That's the hard part, since you don't know anybody, really. You can live a lot of your life with a certain person and still not know what they're capable of doing. I grew up in California, San Jose. Lived there until probably I was 14, and then we moved to Georgia, which is where I went to high school. I also worked at what was called Village Inn Pizza, which is where I met Daniel. I just remember him coming in with a friend of his named Gary.
Hi, I'm Michelle. What can I get you guys?
Michelle, I'm Daniel. And I don't know, what do you like?
He was good looking and he was in college. He had his own car. It was the whole package.
We trust you. Large mushroom.
You got it.
He would sit and drink beer and eat pizza. And then Daniel would start flirting with me.
Is this your first time coming around?
Yeah. I don't think it'll be the last, though.
I felt on top of the world. I felt like somebody cared about me. As soon as I met him, I knew that I wanted to marry him. Daniel finally gave me a little note that had his phone number on it. It said something about give me a call, and so I got brave one day and did it. My life was never the same. This is a journal that I kept from 1979 to 1990. This was March of 1981. Oh boy, I think I'm in love with Daniel Sterrett. He's such a cutie. I wanted him all for myself, so does everyone else, which worries me. I was pretty crazy about it, and I wanted him to be exclusive with me. But during this 6 months or 9 month period that we were dating, he was still dating other people, which was one of those things that I didn't like. I wanted him to be mine and only mine exclusively, and I decided I was going to have sex with him. Being that I was a virgin, the first time we had sex, it was not what I expected. I expected tenderness, romance, but it wasn't something that was going to happen. It was always me laying on my right side with my right arm behind my head, facing him sideways. He wouldn't look at me, wouldn't kiss me, anything like that. I couldn't touch him. When I tried to touch him, I would be stopped. He had zero consideration for me. I feel terrible. But that was just the only way that he would ever have sexual intercourse. That would have been a warning sign for me. I think now. But being that I was a virgin, I thought, okay, I'll just go with it. You have to remember, too, that he was like my first boyfriend that I ever had, so I had nothing else to compare it to. And I already figured within 6 months or so that I wanted to marry him. I thought that I could change him, or I thought that he would change if he knew how much I loved him. And that was a mistake on my part. I learned the hard way, it doesn't work like that. Many pictures of him. After everything that happened, I felt the need to burn them all. But this was our wedding and engagement ring. He asked me to marry him on Christmas Eve when I was about 20 years old. Thought it was gonna be great. I had all these high hopes. We were gonna be this great couple and this happy little family, and then after some time went by, it wasn't that anymore. I had started beauty college, and my parents were gonna move back to California. The hair salon that I worked at was my real first job. It was an amazing job. I loved it, but it bothered Daniel that the manager was a man, because I think he was a little bit jealous about that. One time he showed up and I didn't know that he was coming.
Daniel.
Hey, babe, you ready to go?
I'm sorry, I can't. John asked me to work late.
I was working overtime and he wanted me to come home, and I wasn't ready to come home.
Why are you making her work like this, huh? Look, I don't know what your problem is.
And he just picked a fight.
She's been here all day. What gives you the right to overwork her like that?
Somehow it just turned into blows. Both of them hit each other.
Daniel, what are you doing? Stop it, get off of him.
And then I had to jump in and separate the two of them.
Daniel, stop. Go.
And I remember pushing him out the door. We have to go, we have to go.
Go. Go.
I didn't understand why he had fought with my manager.
You don't need this.
What are you talking about?
But I think it was something that he sort of created in order to make it to where I had to quit.
Okay, I'll provide for you. You never have to let somebody take advantage of you like that. Ever.
Because then that way, if I didn't have that job anymore, I wouldn't make my own money. I'd be more dependent on him. That was his agenda.
Okay.
And now I look at it and I go, that's some controlling behavior. But I really didn't pick up on that until after the fact. He had a lot of pornography. In one of the magazines, there was an article about being tied up, and he did make that suggestion to me. Went into the closet and picked out 4 ties, like neckties. And then tied one arm to the post, tied the other one. He was very methodical.
This will bring us closer together.
I don't really know if he did it before. I just know that he didn't fumble, he didn't stumble with it. He was very matter-of-fact about it. And then tied both legs, same way. He was in total control. I didn't have any way of making any decisions once I was tied up. I think that was what he enjoyed out of it. He was very forceful about it. He was very abrupt about it. Wound up being me giving him oral sex while I was tied to the bedposts. I felt tricked, cheap, hurt. I just remember crying. I would tell him I'm not doing that ever again and go find somebody else to do that.
Why would you think I like that?
The fact that I said no, I carried that with me a little bit, because had I not been so unwilling to do that, maybe he wouldn't have done some of the things he did. I would ask him where he'd been. He would say it was none of my business. Maybe I really didn't want to know what he was doing. Dear self, listen, I have a problem. I don't know whether it's me or Daniel. I feel like he doesn't love me. He's somehow withdrawing from me. But why? I love him too much to live without him. I don't know which way to turn. He would leave the house early in the morning, and then he would come home, eat dinner, and then he would leave again. I wouldn't have any warning of it. It would just be, we get done with dinner, I'd be starting to do dishes, and he would say, I'm going out. And I remember, asking him where leave.
I gotta go do a few things.
When will you be back?
I don't know. Later.
It hurt quite a bit because I wanted him to stay, wanted him to be with me. After he left, I would try to busy myself for a while. It would get later and I would wait for him a bit. And he would come home. When he came back, I would ask him where he'd been. He would say he was at the lake or he was just driving around. Where'd you go?
I've just been out and about. I drove down to look at the water a little bit.
But I didn't want to be confrontational. I didn't want to fight or an argument. So I just kind of let it go.
I think I'm going to take a shower.
It just seemed like that was the new normal, is that he wasn't at home. Kind of like ships passing in the night. He would shower 3 or 4 times a day. He would take a shower after dinner. Then he would come back at night, 10 or 11 o'clock, and then take another shower. It was a little unusual to do it that often. It was not like he was dirty at all. Daniel was an engineer. He had a desk job. I did kind of think maybe something was going on because he would come home, eat dinner, and then he would leave again and be gone for a couple of hours and then come back and then go and take a shower. Hey. Didn't you take a shower earlier?
Yeah.
When my question to him is, why do you take so many? He just said he would like to be clean.
Yeah, I just wanted to take another one.
The worst I'm thinking is that he's, at a bar, picking up women. Maybe I really didn't want to know what he was doing. This is a journal entry from July of 1986, so I was 25 years old. Dear self, you're gonna be a mama. Yes, I just found out today. I'm 5.5 weeks pregnant. How about that? When I found out I was pregnant and I told him, he wasn't as happy as I thought he would be. Not as excited as me anyway. He was worried about it. He was nervous. But it was because I was pregnant. But after my daughter was born,
I have a little gift for you.
Daniel gave me a ruby and diamond heart-shaped necklace and earrings and a ring that went with it.
I just wanted to do something nice for you. I know I haven't been the easiest guy to deal with lately.
It was just a little bit out of the ordinary. It's wonderful.
Yeah?
Happy birthdays.
You don't have to worry about that.
I wondered, where did it come from? Because it was a plain white box and didn't see a receipt on it. And He never said where he got it from, never mentioned where he bought it, if he had. And that was pretty much the only gift he ever gave me.
Don't worry about that. Let's put them on.
But at the time, I was excited. I thought it was really pretty. And I kind of thought at the time he was trying to make up for being rude when I was pregnant. So I was kind of thinking that that might be sort of a I'm sorry gift that goes back to you don't really question it because you're in love. And, you know, he was a jerk before, but now he's trying to apologize. That was what I thought. It was kind of nice. In hindsight, I think that there's always that possibility that he may have taken it from someone. That might explain why he wanted me to wear it all the time and not take it off. Thank you, Daniel. He was working nights, and I was there in this big, giant, old house with nobody. And I kind of didn't like it. And I told him I wanted to go visit my parents, so he stayed in that house. I figured he was busy working. Back then, he worked a lot. He worked a lot of overtime, but he was in that house all by himself, so I don't know what he did during that time. Yeah, it's the house on Westland. I loved the patio, but then everything that happened inside, some terrible memories. Not just for myself, but for the others. I'd been on a trip back to California to visit my parents, and pretty much as soon as I came back, he said, "We're moving." He was very abrupt about it. He picked out the house. He took care of everything. He moved it, he packed it, he did everything to it. I just remember thinking to myself, this is a little unusual, but his explanation to me was always, I'm doing this for you, I'm trying to make your life easier, simpler for you. So it was like, oh, this is nice. He's taking care of me. You did all this yourself?
Yeah.
Out of probably the 6 years we were married, we probably moved 6 times. So it was about once a year. I was young and impressionable, and it was okay. I kind of thought it was cool for a while. But I think that there's entirely that possibility that he had done things at these other houses that I or no one else had any idea about. I couldn't understand why he was so upset.
What's going on? Come here.
That room was off limits to pretty much everyone except himself. Yourself. This is not at all like him. He would take off and go places and leave me at home. I would ask him where he was going and when he would be back. And he would say it was none of my business. Then after he came home at 9 or 10 in the evening, I'd ask him where he was. But you know how he is. If he doesn't want to talk, he won't. I went back home to visit my parents with my daughter. Normally, he would call me every every day or so, every other day. But this time, he didn't call me but like once, which was really strange.
Daniel?
When I came back from this trip, there were a few things that were odd.
Daniel, I'm home.
I noticed that the pictures of my daughter and myself were face down on the bookshelf.
Hey, you're home.
Hi. What happened to these?
I remember asking Daniel what happened.
I'm not sure. I guess I was maybe moving some stuff and I bumped them.
It seemed a little, just a little strange. They were the only things that were knocked over. But to me, that seemed like a logical explanation. I've bumped bookshelves before.
I'll be more careful next time. It's good to see you.
It didn't raise any red flags or anything like that to me. had a spare bedroom. The room was pretty empty. It just had his computer desk. He just used it sort of as an office. But that room was off limits to pretty much everyone except himself. Fuzzy slippers that were in the closet. And I remember my daughter went into that closet to get the slippers out because they were super cute. She wanted to put them on. And he got mad at her and yelled at her about being in that closet. Hey! I heard him raise his voice about, what are you doing in there? You shouldn't be in there. That was his space. That was where his stuff went. And that's when I came around the corner.
What's going on? Come here. It's okay, honey.
And just kind of rushed her out so he wouldn't get too upset about it.
Daniel, she's a toddler. She doesn't know she's not supposed to be in here.
Well, you should know to keep an eye on her. How many times do I have to tell you, this is my space. No one's allowed in here.
It was way over the top. I couldn't understand why he was so upset. It just seemed very, very serious for such a small infraction.
A lot of stuff in here. She could get hurt.
I just remember trying to diffuse the situation.
I'm sorry.
Okay. If you could please keep an eye on her. Okay.
I don't know if I ever really wondered if he hid things in that room. I just thought that it was, they call them man caves now, Everybody has their space a little bit, and that's really all I thought, was that was kind of his space. And that was fine with me because it was one less room I had to clean. So I just kind of let it go. It just seemed a little strange. I started noticing that he was laying on the couch a lot, that he was not his talkative self, he was drinking a lot, just very distant. It's like living with a stranger.
Daniel, you okay?
One time when he was laying on the couch, I had come home from work, and I'm sitting on the edge of the couch just trying to talk with him. How was your day? Wouldn't really even acknowledge that I had said anything.
Daniel?
Body language was just kind of leave me alone. And he'd jump up and then he'd start pacing. And just back and forth, kind of around and back and forth. And to watch this pace, you could kind of tell that he was in deep thought. It was very clear that he was worried about something.
Daniel.
And I remember I would sort of get in front of him a little bit and ask what was going on, what's the matter?
Look at me.
But that was the only answer that I got.
You wouldn't understand.
And that continued for quite some time, many times, and over months and months. I just remember him pacing a lot. This is kind of what he looked like laying on the couch, pacing, just kind of blank, not a smile, not really anything behind his eyes. It's certainly not the same man that I married. He looks like the guy that did what he did. There was a knock at that front door. It didn't even occur to me that it would be the FBI. October 22nd, 1990. I hurt so badly. I loved him so. I gave him everything I had, and he crushed it. Why didn't he tell me? I would have helped him. It never goes away. It never will as long as I live, even after he is dead. I made 3 trips to California, spending more time with my parents. The third time I stayed for probably 2 or 3 weeks. I came back again
Daniel?
Hey.
I walked into the spare bedroom and the window was boarded up and the video camera was on a tripod. I did question about the window being boarded up.
What happened to the window?
Had a little lawn mowing accident.
He just said that he was mowing the yard and a rock flew up and cracked the window. And so he put a board over it. And so that seemed reasonable to me. I also remember noticing that he had put a lock on the outside of his spare bedroom. If anybody was inside, you wouldn't be able to get out.
This lock is new.
And he said that he was just trying to make sure that our daughter didn't get in there and knock over the video camera.
I want to keep her out of here. We got the camera in here. I don't want her to break that.
He claimed he bought it to take videos.
I'm about done here. You hungry?
Sure. So I never really questioned why it was in there. That's my famous last words. I had no reason to think otherwise. I had left my daughter with the babysitter. And we went to this Mexican restaurant. It's the kind that you could like draw with crayons. We're just kind of talking and drawing, and I noticed that he's drawing sort of this really demon-y looking creature that kind of was red and black and had really red and black eyeballs, and it looked really kind of ominous.
Daniel, what is that?
And he said that he felt like he was going crazy, and that if he did go crazy, would I come and visit him?
Yeah, of course. Come visit you. Take care of you, just like I know you'd do for me.
It was like way out in left field. I remember being very shocked that he even said that. I tried real hard not to make it appear so. So I was kind of, it'll be okay. Yeah, of course I'll come and see you. Trying to make him feel better. And then he said that he wanted me to leave again.
No, I think you should go visit your family again this weekend.
He basically said he needed some time and some space. I'm like, I just got back, like 4 days ago. But he kept saying over and over it wasn't, he'd get my head straight, and I need time alone.
I don't want to leave you right now.
That's what I need. I need some alone time.
I kind of tried to talk to him a little bit, kind of get a better sense of what he was talking about, but he wasn't responsive.
Okay.
That's what you need.
He said, you have to go, I'll get tickets. 2 days later, bam, tickets. Next day I got on a plane. I remember laying down to go to sleep, and I had probably slept for about an hour and got the phone call from my mother-in-law that they had just left the police department.
Slow down.
They were saying that Daniel had done these terrible, horrible things.
What do you mean kidnapped?
She kind of explained to me a little bit about they think that, and there may have been several others. She's the one that told me he was missing and that nobody knew where he was. I was floored.
It's not right. It has to be someone else.
I just remember thinking, no way, there's no possible way that he could do that sort of thing.
I'll let you know if I hear anything from him, okay?
There's got to be an explanation. Somebody's wrong. And at 7 o'clock in the morning, there was a knock at the front door of my parents' house. And I actually was the one that opened the door. It didn't even occur to me that it would be the FBI.
FBI. May we come in? Of course, yes.
Then they kind of forced their way in a little bit. We need to look around. They thought that maybe he was actually there already, so they went and searched the whole house. Segregated me from my parents, segregated me from my child, sat me in the living room. And then they started asking me about his sexual preferences, what he liked, what he didn't like.
What does this have to do with anything?
And then they started to give me a little bit of detail.
We have reason to believe that your husband kidnapped a 15-year-old girl.
He had locked her in the closet while he went to work, and then would come back, and that's what the video camera was for. And he did some bad things to her. But they told me that she had escaped, that he was drinking a lot and passed out. When he passed out, she escaped through the front door, ran to the neighbors.
Over the last 24 hours, have you heard from him?
No. It doesn't make sense. He would never do anything like this.
I'm still thinking that it's a mistake. There's no way this happened. There's no way that he did this. There's no way. But they think that there may have been several others, that it was a pattern.
All the points that we've gone over lead to Daniel.
They told me that the particular last girl had escaped, but there were 4 others prior to her that he kidnapped and raped. And that he was responsible for the death of one of them. 2 shots to the chest. He put her in a couple of garbage bags and put her in a creek bed. And the dates that he kidnapped the girls were the same dates when I was in California. And then it's kind of hard to deny it. They kept me just trying to find out if I knew anything. I said no, that I had no idea that any of this was happening. I walked in the house and it was awful. You just kind of knew what was going on. How could you do this to me and your own daughter? What about her? What happens to her years from now? Do I tell her? Do I lie? I have no answer. I'm spending more time with my parents. They're very supportive, but I'm kind of dreading going home. I had left my daughter with the babysitter and walked in the house and it was awful. It was like a scene out of a movie. I just remember walking in and there was a mattress that was on the floor. There was rope. There was all kinds of things. And the video camera was on. And the window was still boarded up. And the closet door was open. 2 strands of chains were wrapped around the rod in the closet. And I just remember being aghast. I was, exactly where things happened. It just kind of overcame me. The devastation, the sheer cruelty about it. And I was married to him during this time. So, but then that leaves nothing for, mine was small in proportion to the other people that he hurt. So. I remember that. Yeah, that was the day that they found him. Those were the U.S. Marshals. The day he got arrested. It took him 4 days, but they found him in Texas.
Do you have any statements?
The police told me that he was parked behind a dumpster asleep with a gun between his legs. And that he just happened to be asleep when they found him and knocked on the window or whatever. And he wasn't able to do that. himself, it would have been a lot easier on me, sure.
So far, police have linked Sterrett to 7 open investigations in Georgia and both North and South Carolina. He was apprehended after one of his alleged victims managed to escape from his house and went to police.
That somebody that I loved and lived with and married and had kids with could do these things. It was really devastating. I didn't look at pictures of his victims. I didn't look at names. I just tried to distance myself as much as I could.
Investigators are sorting through thousands of pornographic books, magazines, and videotapes, all confiscated from a storage locker that Sterrett allegedly rented.
It was boxes upon boxes upon boxes, all kinds of S&M stuff, all kinds of disguised kits, how to live off of land, how to kill people with normal everyday items. He had to have been collecting it for a long time, longer than I anticipated. After a certain amount of time, the police asked me what I wanted to do with it, and I said burn it all. So they took it to a dumpster and dumped it all in and doused it and set it on fire, and I got to watch. There was still that part of me that was holding out that maybe somebody was wrong. There's no way that he could do this. And I did, in a way, want to hear from him to kind of ask him what happened. When I went to go visit him right after his arrest, he never talked about it.
It's good to see you.
He told me that he was trying to protect me from it and that he would never talk about it with me.
What happened?
The less you know, the better.
He did tell me a phrase. He said, "The man from Augusta is no more, and I know who I am now."
I'm sorry.
That was really the last thing that he told me. And what that meant is that this person that he was before, that I had married and whatnot, was not the same person anymore. And that's really the last thing that I ever got from him. I was done. I said I want a divorce. So he said okay, and he signed the papers and gave them back to me. Jeannie, the one that he killed. I've not really seen a picture of her before. That makes it more difficult for me, because I know who did this, and I know that she's not here anymore. The only thing I could say would be that I was sorry that it happened to her. I really don't know why he did what he did. Maybe it was just the thrill of it. I don't know. It's hard to be in the mind of somebody who does terrible things. You always wonder if it was something that you did, but my thought is that he's evil and that he's always been that way and just hid it for a long time.
I kept it from all but my very closest friends. And if somebody would say, "Where's your son?" I'd say, "Oh, he's in Texas and he works for the state." I actually wished that he was dead. That would have been easier for my son to be dead. When your son dies in my small rural community, people come over and they comfort you and they bring casseroles. They don't bring a casserole when your son's in prison for murder. Not quite 15 years ago, I realized that my son was a psychopath and he hates me. I have no doubt that Patrick, if he gets out, will try to kill me. I have no doubt of that. This is my favorite picture of Patrick. I look at this little kid and I think how innocent he was and how much he enjoyed life and how much I enjoyed him. I was a single mom living in Arkansas with my two sons, Clay, who was the older, and Patrick, the younger. We used to call Patrick Little Peter Perfect behind his back. Patrick was the golden child for me because he was never any trouble. And when he began to change, it came out of left field. It shocked me. Is that Patrick?
That is Patrick.
I couldn't recognize him. It's been 12 years since I've seen Patrick. This is inmate 655687, but he's not recognizable to me as my son. That's a stranger. And it's not somebody that I really want to know. Can you show me the picture of Patrick as the baby with the little yellow ball? There's no resemblance. This was a perfectly innocent little baby. And this is a man that's a monster. He's Charlie Manson. I love that baby, but he's gone. Patrick was the easiest kid in the world to raise until he was about 11. And that was when he started having problems. We were pretty poor. I was living on child support, and Patrick asked me for a Walkman, which was a in thing for kids to have at that time. And I told him I couldn't afford it. He seemed like he accepted that. But one day, he came home from school, and he had the Walkman. And I said, wow, where did you get that? And he said, oh, I borrowed it from somebody at school. Well, I got a knock on the door. Hello.
Hi.
Can I help you?
I'm sorry to bother you. Are you Patrick's mother?
Yes. And there's two parents and a child standing outside.
I'm Tim. This is my wife, Betty. And it seems as though Patrick has convinced our son to sell him his Walkman.
And they tell me that Patrick had traded the son a $20 bill and a check for the Walkman. He had stolen a check and a $20 bill out of my purse.
Patrick, would you come in here, please?
God knows I was embarrassed that my son had done this.
All right, Patrick, give James back the Walkman and apologize for what you did.
Here. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Have a good day now.
You too.
After the parents left, I told Patrick, we need to talk about this.
What did you do?
I didn't do anything.
I didn't do it, was his response. I was furious at him for lying to me.
They have my check with my name on it. And how do you think they got
I said I don't know.
But Patrick continued to deny that was the case. I was so angry that I didn't want to see his face.
Just go up to your room. I don't want to see you for the rest of the night.
Lying in the face of evidence. This is a psychopathic trait, but I didn't know. It was about 10 o'clock at night after I spanked him and sent him to his room, and Clay went to bed. But then he came back out and told me that Patrick was gone. And I went into the room and the window was open. The screen had been knocked off of the window, and Patrick was nowhere to be found. I was frantic, so I called 911 and turned out the county to look for him. And he was found about 7 miles away.
Have a good evening, ma'am.
Thank you, officer. You too.
When Patrick came home, he was still enraged and defiant.
Patrick, don't you walk away from me. We're going to talk about this.
He was looking me straight in the eye with this stony glare.
Don't do it again.
I'd never seen that expression on Patrick's face.
What are you gonna do, lock me up?
That famous picture of Charlie Manson staring like Satan, that's the look. And among people who are familiar with psychopaths, we call it the look. And he said, you can't watch me 24 hours a day. I'll do it again, and you can't stop me. He would do what he wanted to do, and there was nothing in his mind that I could do about it. And that scared me to death, because I knew he was telling the truth. I couldn't watch him 24 hours a day. I was in college. I was working part-time, and so I tried to figure out a way to control him. And so I took him out of public school, enrolled him in a private school. My son went to church with me 3 times a week. He was taught responsibility and truthfulness. After a while, he went back to being little Peter Perfect again. So it kind of passed over as far as I could see. When Patrick was about 15, I was working nights in a hospital. And one night I get a call at work from a cop, and he has found Patrick. They brought him to the hospital where I worked. He was not very remorseful. He thought it was funny. He was, again, defying me. I was scared and frustrated and angry. He could have killed somebody or killed himself.
Now you listen to me. What you did was dangerous. I won't let you do it again.
I said, okay, I have extra beds in the hospital. If you're going to pull this kind of stuff, I can't trust you. So here's the deal. For the rest of the school year, you're going to come with me to work.
From now on, I'm going to keep a closer eye on you.
And I'd put him to sleep in an empty hospital bed and then take him to school in the morning. So he had 24-hour supervision. And he didn't like that. The look he had in his eyes was so defiant and so angry that it actually made me afraid. It's almost, I would love to cut your throat. It's horrible. I didn't think he was going to kill me, but it was an absolute defiance. I'm laying there on the floor, and Patrick's just standing over me with this defiant look. And I'm totally dumbstruck that he would do this. That summer, following the joyriding, I sent him and Clay to my parents. My dad was a school teacher. He was retired. So I wanted him to, over the summer, when I couldn't watch Patrick myself day and night, keep an eye on him. In the fall, Patrick came home. I wasn't taking him to work with me anymore. Things kind of went back to normal. And then he started roaming the streets at night. One morning, I got up about 6 o'clock in the morning and I went into the kitchen to make a cup of coffee, and Patrick comes strolling in the back door.
Patrick?
And he'd obviously been out all night.
You can't be out all night. You've got class in a couple of hours.
School night, and I had no idea where he was going or what he was doing.
From now on, you're going to have a strict curfew, and if you
We got into a verbal altercation, and the next thing I know, he hits me.
Oh!
Knocks me to the floor. And then he kicks me in the ribs. It was over in 30 seconds. I'm laying there on the floor, and Patrick's just standing over me with this defiant look. I'll do what I want to do, and you can't stop me. And the next thing I know, he's out the front door and gone. And I end up with a couple of broken ribs. I just laid there for probably 5 minutes before I even tried to get up. But I didn't even really feel the physical pain. It was emotional pain that my son would hit me and kick me and then just stand there. After I was finally able to get up, I called the police and I turned him in for assault and runaway. I was trying to give Patrick consequences for his behavior. But my mother had taken him in to save him from the cops and getting him in trouble. She's going to take care of him, and he'll be a good boy at her house. I thought that Patrick would be better with a man in the house, and so I was happy and excited for him to come home. I actually thought things were okay. He was going to high school for his senior year, making decent grades, and I thought things were kind of hunky-dory. About 6 months after we had moved to Florida and things seemed good, I got a knock on the door in the afternoon, and it was the school resource officer who came in and very gently broke to me the news that Patrick had a gun at school in a gray gym bag and had been showing it to other students. Well, Patrick wasn't home, and I immediately looked in the back seat. And sure enough, there was a gun in the gray gym bag. There's no words for it. I can't think of a word in the English language that can encompass the pain I felt. And then Patrick came home.
What is this?
And he had a kind of a shocked, look on his face. It surprised him that I knew he had the gun.
Where did you get it? Why would you bring it to school?
He didn't say anything, and I verbally lit into him.
Did you hear me? I asked you a question.
I don't remember exactly the words I used, but I told him there would be severe consequences.
You know what? I am sick of the nonsense. I'm calling the cops.
And he took off. He ran. And I'm left standing there with a gun in a gym bag. And then I called the police and told them he was a runaway. At this point, as his mother, it was like I was on a roller coaster. And each time it hit bottom, it was worse than the time before. But I couldn't let go of my fantasy son. The boy that I wanted him to be. And it was hard for me to accept the reality of who Patrick was. That night, he stole a motorcycle, and 2 days later, the police caught him and called me. And my husband and I went to the police station, and this big old cop brought him down. And Patrick looked at me with absolute contempt, and his words were, "What the took you so long?" It was like I'd been hit in the face with a bucket of water. He, I think, wanted to show me that he was in control. I was so mad, and I wanted to show him that I did have some control over him. And I turned to the policeman, and I said, "There's been a mistake. This boy looks like my son, but he can't be my son because my son wouldn't talk to me like that. Take him back." And my husband and I turned and left. And I got a glimpse out of my peripheral vision of Patrick having a totally shocked look on his face. That was totally unexpected on his part. Patrick, and he was crying, wondering why I had not taken him out. We went to court a few days later. He got probation, mandatory counseling, and a curfew. He wasn't 18, so they released him to me, and I brought him home. I was so tired of dealing with his things one after another that I almost didn't want to take him back. But I felt like I had to. I was his mother. It wasn't very long before he convinced his brother to rent an apartment for the two of them to move into. I knew that nothing good could come out of Patrick getting Clay to rent an apartment for the two of them. I knew that was a total disaster in the happening.
Clay?
I did my best to talk Clay out of renting the apartment.
I don't think I like this. Are you sure you want to do it?
Don't worry about it, Mom. I can look out for him this way.
It's not too late to get your deposit back.
But Patrick talked him into it.
You know how he is.
I'll be fine. I can handle it.
And they moved out. I kept saying, "Oh, he's just a teenager and he'll grow up and be okay." I wanted to believe that Patrick would be okay. I stayed in denial. I wanted to throttle him for doing something like this, for being so stupid. Not long after they moved out, maybe a week, my husband and I went over to their apartment.
That's not really a good time.
Don't be silly. We're coming in.
And I walked in. The whole apartment was covered with computer and TVs and wallets and all kind of merchandise that I knew had to be stolen. And I asked Patrick, "Where did you get these? Did you steal them?" And he said, "Hey."
Unless you're going to pay it for me.
And I said, "Stealing is the way you intend to support yourself?"
I did not raise my son to be a petty criminal.
It was like, enough is enough, boy. I'm calling the cops.
Come on.
We talked about me turning him into the cops years and years later. And he said, "You shouldn't have done that to me. You shouldn't have turned me into the cops." And I said, "What should I have done? I was trying to teach you a lesson to stop you from destroying your life." And he said, "I don't know, but you shouldn't have called the cops. You shouldn't have betrayed me." Now, this is his second arrest in Florida. But in Florida, unless a juvenile has murdered somebody, they will immediately release them to their parents. No bail, nothing, just release them. So about 2 or 3 days after he came home, I wake up one morning and Patrick's gone. The ankle monitor was laying on the floor. He cut it off. It was kind of like giving me the finger. He was showing me that I couldn't control him. He was going to do what he was going to do. I found out he'd stolen another motorcycle and gone to Texas. I had a sense of urgency. I knew that if he continued to do that when he turned 18, he was going to prison. He's going to have a criminal record. And I only had a few months to get through to him to calm it down. He was on the downhill slope on a bobsled, and I wanted to stop it before he hit a tree. This is my son, the felon. This is his first adult mugshot. I had a fantasy of seeing Patrick graduate from an Ivy League school with a PhD, and what I get is a mugshot. He was arrested for aggravated burglary in Dallas. He stole some computers at gunpoint and tied the people up. He looks kind of like he's surprised that he got caught. He just looks dead. Empty. This is no longer my child. You know, this is just some thug. A few months after Patrick got out on parole, he came to visit us. He came in and he asked me, "Do you know why I didn't come home?"
Bet you want to know why I tried to stay in Texas?
All right. Why don't you tell me?
And he looked at me and said in a very hateful voice, "I didn't come home because I knew if I got into trouble, you would turn me into the cops." And I said, "You got that right, boy. Nothing has changed."
I want you to get your life together, so stop giving me reasons to turn you in.
He just kind of huffed and walked off. And basically that was the last I spoke to him that visit. I knew Patrick hated me, and there are no words to describe the feeling of having your child essentially spit in your eye. It knots up in my stomach. It goes up my spine. It comes out as tears. I can't explain the depth of the pain that I felt. And even now, talking about it will bring up fears and tears and pain.
For 3 days, Tarrant County lawmen searched through a wooded area in North Fort Worth.
Nothing would have prepared me for what was to come next. Nothing would have prepared me for Patrick becoming a killer. I knew that Patrick had bad behavior and violent behavior, but the only thing I'm afraid of at that point in time is that he's going to do something that is illegal, whether it's rob a liquor store or steal a car, but nothing would have prepared me for Patrick becoming a killer. Hello? I picked up the phone, and it was a detective from Dallas telling me. At that point, I melted down. Totally melted down. I screamed like a dog who had been shot with a shotgun in the gut. I screamed and I cried. It was my worst fear. I was grief-stricken. I was in denial. I was in sadness. I was in anger. I felt every range of emotion that the human can feel.
For 3 days, Tarrant County lawmen searched through a wooded area in North Fort Worth. They combed hundreds of acres on the ground and in the air, looking for Dallas teenager Jessica Witt.
Patrick called me in a few days and told me that he had been arrested for murder, but he wasn't guilty, and that she was a girl that he knew and worked with. He worked in some kind of telemarketing firm with her.
She was reported missing from an apartment in Northeast Dallas January 20th. Her parents say she left with a friend, and the parents say that friend told their daughter's roommate he killed Jessica.
They didn't have Jessica's body. They didn't know where it was. And so I wanted to believe that he didn't do it, but I was afraid that he did.
Police arrested the suspect on a parole violation, but still with no proof of murder.
I couldn't believe anything he said. He had lied to me so many times, but I didn't want to believe he was guilty. So it was a yes, no, yes, no, yes, no feeling. And vacillating back and forth between he probably did it to maybe he's innocent. While he was in jail on parole violation, he called one of his ex-convict friends and told him where to find the body to please go move it.
The spot you're looking for is directly in line with the tower. Are you talking about in the open pasture? Yeah. You'll see a grove of trees between the road and the tower. It's a small grove. There'll be a tree falling over in front of you. You know what I'm talking about? A point you need to be. All right.
I don't know how stupid Patrick could be, how unsuccessful somebody as smart as he is could be, to make a telephone call that he knows is monitored to some other guy and tell him where the body is.
I know. Hello. If I go out there now, I got all day.
No, for goodness sakes, how stupid. Any person with an IQ of 50 would be a more successful criminal than Patrick was.
I'm serious to do it because Saturday all gonna hit the fan, and if they find it, I'm gone. It's beach as well. All right. And I'm counting on you. That's my life, dog. All right.
But of course the cops were listening and they went and found the body. He shot her twice in the head. This is Jessica. She was a gorgeous girl. I learned that he had stolen her grandfather's credit card, and she had told her family that he had used the credit card. And that was why he killed Jessica, because she betrayed him. She told about him using her grandfather's credit cards. She didn't realize what she was dealing with Patrick. She had no earthly idea that she was dealing with a man who could put a gun to her head and pull the trigger if she ticked him off. I didn't contact her family for over 20 years because I was so afraid I would hurt them more. When Patrick put a bullet in Jessica's head, he destroyed her family. When he put the second bullet in her head, he destroyed me. I was absolutely terrified that Patrick had sent this man to kill me. After Patrick was arrested, I went to visit him some. I wrote him every day. I tried to be supportive and hoped that he was innocent. I didn't want to know the truth. The truth was too painful to accept. We really didn't talk about the murder. If we did talk anything about it, it's I'm innocent, Mom, and I'll prove it. I'm innocent. I have an alibi witness. I didn't do it. I was crazy, and the shame deepened, and I felt alone. I felt like a failure as a parent. I would have drained every drop of my blood out of my body if that would have straightened Patrick out. I would have sold my soul to Satan, anything to straighten Patrick out. I didn't give up. I didn't give up for over 15 years after he killed Jessica Witt. I had visited Patrick a couple, 3 times a year in prison, and in 2007, I went to visit, and he said, "You wouldn't like me very much if you knew the truth about my crime. It's worse than the cops know."
Bet you wouldn't come visit me if you knew what I really did.
And I could see that he had no repentance for what he had done. And I asked him, I said, what could be worse than putting 2 bullets in her head? Did you burn her with cigarettes? Did you make her beg for her life? What would have been worse?
Patrick, what did you do to that girl?
Wouldn't you like to know?
He looked me in the eye with that horrible, psychopathic stare. He was proud of what he had done, and it stabbed me in the heart. There was no longer any way that I could stay in denial that he was redeemable. I knew that, for lack of a better word, he had turned his life over to Satan. He had a reprobate mind, as the Bible says. When I walked out of that prison, I was done with Patrick. This is a letter from Patrick to me. Ultimately, you did this to me. So while before I was not your enemy at all, I am now. You don't like me, and I didn't and don't like you. Your spite seems to know no bounds, and that's fine because my patience and tenacity knows neither. And I've already told you what the consequences of this would be. I have nothing of value to me left to lose. He wanted me dead, just like he wanted Jessica dead for betraying him. And I have betrayed him. Years after Patrick went to prison, I get a call from a man who says he's looking for a small rental property. He heard that I had one. And after he moved into the house, the next thing I know, the phone lines were being cut, the water lines were being cut. And he starts to very vaguely threaten me. I was absolutely terrified. I find hundreds of letters from Patrick to this man telling him how to manipulate our family, and I dubbed him the Trojan horse. He was a former cellmate of Patrick's, and Patrick had sent him. So I went to the local sheriff, and he gets arrested, and he goes to jail. I firmly believe that the man was sent here to kill me. I can't prove that, but I believe it. home because I didn't feel safe. I didn't tell anybody, even my most intimate friends, that I was gone. At this point in time in my life, I know that if Patrick can find somebody else to come to kill me, he will. That's my fear. I have a gun on every flat surface in my house. I have a 17-camera security system on my house. My son Clay lives in hiding, and I try not to live in terror, but to live in caution, because I don't want to die. I have no doubt that Patrick, if he gets out, will try to kill me. I have no doubt of that. And so Jessica's family and I decided to work together to keep Patrick behind bars. I don't think that Patrick should have been given life with the possibility of parole. I think he should have been given life without parole, or that he should have been executed. He has no compassion. But I have managed to compartmentalize it and accept that the man in Texas is not my golden child. The little boy, he was so cute and so loved and so wonderful. In my mind, I buried that little boy.